going on, traders? Happy Thursday. I hope you guys have all been having an amazing day today, but I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know exactly how it went for me day trading wise. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's recap. And as you guys can see from the screen, right, it was overall a green day on my account, up nearly 700 on the day. So it was definitely good to be able to recover some of that loss, right, from that big loss that I took yesterday where my account was down nearly $1,900 on the day, right? But as far as why I did end up green so much today, Tesla itself did end green on the day, right? It did end up pushing back up to $265 a share. So that was definitely exciting to see. But as far as how I did day trading wise, I did unfortunately end red on the day yet again, right? So I was, up $62 on TQs and I lost $94 on SQ. So overall finished down, $32 on the day and change, right? And, although I did have a red day today and yesterday, they were managed red days, right? So I am, hopefully looking forward to tomorrow ending green and being able to make back everything I've lost and more, right? Because of the fact that they were small and managed risks, right? Because if they were out of control red days, right, it would be it'd be a slim chance that I would be able to recover the losses, right? But because I did a good job of making sure I managed my risk, right, I put myself still in a good spot heading into tomorrow, even though I have had 2 red days. But, as you guys can see, the amount of orders I had today was just ridiculous, right? So I definitely over traded like crazy. I was trading super emotional today. And I'm just going to go ahead and explain to you guys where I went wrong and, how I can improve moving forward. But as far as what I saw going on, right, on the bigger time frames, you guys can see that the NASDAQ, right, we took a nice dip yesterday. And so, heading into today, we were potentially going to test that previous support that we did see, yesterday and a few times before where we have tested this range, right? And so to me, it made sense why after, having a pretty decent, fall yesterday, we could potentially gap up, right? This thing has been consistently making higher highs and higher lows, right? Anytime it approaches this green SMA line, it'll briefly, fall below it before it actually ends up reversing and forming these higher highs and higher lows, right? So we do have periods where we correct ourselves, but we mainly have still been trending upwards, right? And so I need to be real with that. And that's why, right, given these higher highs and higher lows, it wasn't surprising that we did end up pulling on back, right, as we have experienced pullbacks. But typically, since we are trending upwards, right, and are validating this simple moving average, right, as more of a support than a resistance, then what that, shows me is that once we did, push below the SMA line and ended up testing it as a support, right, there was potential that we could end up gapping back up, right, as we did here and as we did over here, right, where anytime we break below, we end up gapping back up above the simple moving average. Doesn't mean it had to happen, right, but that's just a pattern I was seeing. And so that's why I thought there could potentially be, some good movement and gap up on TQQQ. Now, the other alternative I was considering was, we are going to continue using the exponential moving average, right, or the EMA, the blue line here, as a resistance. As you saw during the pre-market session, we gapped up. It acted as a resistance, right, and started to get rejected. And so that's definitely something I was keeping an eye out for. Were we going to just continue to form these lower highs and lower lows and continue to get rejected by the EMA? And so once we actually did start to see it pop up, right, that's where, I started to focus on TQQQ. But where I really went wrong on the day was I ended up, second guessing myself way too much today. So as you guys can see, my plan, right, of this thing ending up gapping up, right, ended up in hindsight going according to plan, right? So if I had just stuck with my plan and tried to trade TQQ and the potential gap up opportunity it had, right, I could have walked away hitting my 1% daily goal. But as far as the mistakes I made today was thinking this thing was going to end up pushing down before it continued to push up. And so I've made this mistake countless times before. I'm sure even you guys have noticed it, but I will look at a past pattern and think that, something like that has to happen. So for example, if something were to, pull on back and then gap up, as you guys can see, this thing experienced a resistance before it continued to try to push up. And so I thought that, we were going to push on down and potentially break below the middle VWAP, right, and the EMA before we ended up bouncing and continuing to push up. And that's really where my mistake is, right? It almost seems very stupid, right? In hindsight, looking back and thinking, oh, well, let me just, try to juice this SQ's play here, thinking it's going to break below the middle VWAP. It has to before it ends up picking back up, right? What I need to be real with myself is, why am I chasing this trade here, right? Potentially for this gap down. If I think the direction is going to be uptrending on the day, why am I chasing, right, this one trade on SQQQ, when if I had just not taken that trade at all, right, I would have still been focused on getting into TQQQ, and I would have been able to, buy these pullbacks and sell at the top, right? At the more resistance levels. But instead, what I was doing is, this thing ended up pushing up, it pulled on back, right, pushed on up here, and me being greedy, I wanted to try to milk SQQQ, right, because I was able to make money on the way down here. And so as it pushes back up and I see it get rejected, I average up fully, only for this thing to start to go according to plan, but it bounced completely and continue to validate this uptrend and gap up that I saw had potential to actually play out. But I was too busy trying to focus on getting in at the best price at SQQQ for another ride down, that I just completely blew it for the remainder of the day, right? So although I did make money on TQs, I just ended up chasing SQQQs, thinking this thing was going to continue to sell off and form new lows, right? When in reality, that didn't have to happen, right? And so as you guys can see, this thing, right, although it did push up, it ended up pulling on back, and it was validating the EMA as a support, right? I was just too blindsided, right, thinking that a trade had to happen, right? This thing had a nice sell-off yesterday, and I thought that because of that, and because of the fact that we were really struggling at the beginning to push up, right, we were seeing lots of red candles, then that was my indication that we are gonna try making a new low. But that's so naive of me to think about, right, and so hopeful of me to think about. And just looking back at today's trading, right, it could have just been a lot easier for me, less trades, less stress. I could have just kept it more simple, right, and I would have just performed a lot better. But as far as where I see the Nasdaq headed now, well, now that we have gapped up, right, well, what typically happens every time we gap up? We typically tend to use, right, the EMA as a support, as you guys can see. So are we going to potentially continue to climb and use the EMA as a support, or are we going to get rejected and start to correct ourselves back to the SMA line, right? So that's what we're going to have to follow up with and see what happens. But I'm excited. Tomorrow's Friday. Let's make sure we don't do anything dumb or naive tomorrow, right? And we are implementing good practices, and I hope to hear that you guys did really well. I'm pumped for tomorrow. I hope you guys are too, and I look forward to seeing you guys in my recap tomorrow. Take care and have an amazing rest of your day.